Hello, Internet. Shop update. What's going on? Things happening. Got the steel for the forge press. That's some pretty heavy steel there. May not be able to tell it by the looks of it, but it's pretty beefy. I could have gotten heavier, but I think it was too heavy. I could have gotten lighter. I think it was too light. I just don't want to have any problems at all with this press. I want it to be stable and solid, not have any flexing or twisting issues or any other thing. With that said, that steel is freaking heavy. Freaking heavy. Me and my son could barely even move one of those things. I used my gantry crane to unload it from the truck and get it up to the garage door, and we plopped it outside and then dragged it in. We carried all three beams on the gantry crane, and it handled it just fine. Need a little more air in the tires. It did okay. And there are some of the pieces. I'm still lacking the control lever, if that's what it's called. I'm gonna get that next. But the cylinder is a 5-inch bore cylinder with a 12-inch stroke. I figured that was the minimum. And I think that'll be more than good enough. I've watched some other YouTube videos where people have made their own press, and I've seen some where they used smaller cylinders and had problems. And I've seen some that used a cylinder just like that and they had no problems. So I figured that's the cylinder that I want, and it's also made in the USA. In fact, the original cylinder that I had found was made in Ukraine. You know, I don't have a problem with Ukraine, but I really think that it's important, especially in this time, that we find companies here in the U.S. to do business with for a number of reasons, which I'm going to get into in my rant portion of this video. The pump and the tank are both made in the USA, and the ball door motor is made in the USA as well. I think that tank is a 12-gallon tank, and the pump is a 16 gallons per minute, which is a higher rated pump than what I've seen being used on the other videos where people were making their forge presses and their pumps were working just great. That's also a dual stage pump, so that'll give me some good, it'll make it nice and fast when it's coming down, and then as soon as it hits resistance, then the pump will switch to the slower, more powerful, however it works. I'm not a hydraulics expert, but it's a 2-stage pump and it's going to make things cool. So I still have a bunch of fittings and little doodads that I have to get on top of that, the hoses and whatnot. This project will get started probably in the next 2 weeks. I have to get some other supplies before I get going, and I'm still waiting for the milling machine to show up. It's supposed to be delivered tomorrow. This has been an agonizing process where the delivery of the machine has been dragging out and dragging out and dragging out, and it's getting very frustrating. So I guess at the latest Tuesday, they have to call me and arrange a delivery time for the milling machine. So hopefully that'll be tomorrow. I can't get started on this until the milling machine is in the shop and placed where I want it, because once I start cutting beams and getting that thing assembled and welded together, I'm not going to have any room in this shop at all while it's on the floor. It's a small shop, it just is what it is. Yeah, it's a good start. These are the most major pieces of the whole thing. That cylinder was bloody expensive. The motor is a 5 horsepower, 220 volt motor made by Baldor. I could have gotten a cheaper one made in China, and I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to do that. Yeah, I'm real happy with this stuff, and I can't wait to get this forge press together. So for the rant portion of this video, I kind of have been thinking heavily on things the last year, considering what's been going on the last couple years. I think it's really important that Americans really think about what they're doing, who they're giving their money to. We have a lot of issues with corporate greed and sending stuff over to China to get manufactured Most of the manufacturing base in the country has left because of this. The corporations wanting to manufacture things cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. What they're really doing is they're just adding more profit to their profit margin and making their paychecks bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, back in the day, corporations would, well, one, everything was manufactured here, and they strove to make the best. And there was really brutal competition between the companies, and that was really good. We got quality, well-made products, and we don't have that no more. Bit by bit, plastic started getting introduced. You know, it was like, hey, if we make this handle plastic and not metal anymore, well, we'll save all this money in the next year and increase our profit margin and yada, yada, yada. And now everything's made of plastic and they've cheapified everything. In fact, if you've watched AVE's channel any length of time, you'll definitely get a good dose of how the corporations have cheapified everything. A good example of this is Milwaukee. What's it called? The worm drive saw. I have one here, an older one. I found one years ago for my dad. It was all metal, and I bought it for him. This one that I have now, I actually found in the thrift store, and it's one of the transition ones where they started introducing plastic. And of course, the first things they made plastic was the handles. And of course, one of the handles on this one's broke. You can buy replacement ones, but that's beside the point. It's plastic. They introduced it, it broke. And AVE, he tore down a few, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many of these saws. And you could clearly see a difference in the quality between the old original ones and the newer ones, and the progression into, you know, replacing high quality parts with crap. You know, that's a problem. I mean, I'm really at the point where I'm sick of this. So what happens to all the jobs that are no longer here for manufacturing, you know, because they've been sent overseas? They're gone. And we have an issue now where most of the skilled labor that once existed has to get jobs at Walmart, you know, customer service jobs. Job training these days is a load of garbage. There's no career training. There's none of that. You're going to learn customer service and stupid nonsense like that, which pay minimum wage. They're not capital wage jobs. It's not a career field that you can, you know, say, you know, I'm going to spend the next 20 years here and climb up the company ladder and retire with a nice 401k and, you know, a nice position and yada, yada, yada. You know, I think that I understand, you know, people want to save money and, you know, Harbor Freight and all that stuff. But honestly, the stuff that you get from Harbor Freight's garbage. Most of this stuff is garbage. You know, it's useful garbage. And it's like not even me. I don't even have a choice but to buy this nonsense. Because what American company makes this stuff anymore? You know, so pressure needs to be put on these companies to bring manufacturing back for a number of reasons. If anything is showing real clear right now is this crisis that we've got going on where we can't get any goods. And we have China over there threatening war against us all the time. They're threatening Taiwan all the time. They have a ton of human rights violations against the Uyghurs and Muslims and Christians and other minorities in China, not to mention how they jackboot all over their own people. They control their people with a social system, you know, and it's color coded. And if you're any color other than green, you know, God help you if you're in the red, you're going to pretty much end up homeless. And you know, this nonsense with the virus and what they've done with that. This has just gone too far, and I think that Americans need to sit down and think about this and start putting pressure on companies to bring manufacturing back to the United States, stop buying China. You know, you got Taiwan, Japan, and Korea you can buy from. You got Mexico you can buy from. You got Malaysia you can buy from. But and you got, you know, England, Germany, France, and Italy that you can buy from. I think China needs to be completely cut out of the picture at this point. I think if you can't find made in the USA, buy it used. Do what you can not to buy Chinese garbage. The other thing that I want to bring up is at the end of World War II, Japan was completely obliterated. Their factories were demolished. Japan was more destroyed than Germany was. They had nothing. And even MacArthur mentioned that, you know, the Japanese had been obliterated into thousands of years back. I mean, they were put that far back. Well, what they did after the war, because the factories were demolished because of the heavy bombing, the car companies like Mitsubishi, they started making cars and whatnot again. They had people manufacturing items in their homes, in their home shops, in their garages, whatever they had. The Japanese, they emptied their homes out, they converted them into shops, and they would manufacture stuff, and they'd do one thing. One shop would do one thing, and they might have, you know, 10, 15 different houses doing this one thing. For instance, the wiring looms that go into the cars, they set the people in their homes up with a plywood board or a couple plywood boards painted, and they had color-coded stripes or lines painted on there, and the wires that would go there would be the same color, and they had nails on there so you could put the wire on there and the nail would hold it, and then you'd put the other wire where it goes, and they would assemble these wiring looms on these wooden boards, and then they would tape them up and insulate them, whatever they had to do, and the wiring looms would be tossed in a basket, and they'd fill those baskets up, and they'd have a pile of baskets at the end of the day. And then Mitsubishi would come around and they'd collect these baskets, and they would take them back, and then the wiring looms would then be used to assemble into, you know, the cars that they were making. And it's the same thing with carburetors and the little screws and stuff. There'd be a home shop, and all they'd be doing is making needle valves, you know, just needle valves on this little simple machine. And they'd make boxes of these needle valves, and another person would be stamping out floats and their stuff. And this is how they did it. And they did it with everything: toasters, cars, electronics, whatever. That's how they had to do it. And by 1955, manufacturing was back in Japan. The factories were rebuilt. The economy was getting on track. The politics was settling down. Everything was getting stable. And these companies then took the people working in their homes and employed them in their plants. So what I'm saying, and I've been saying this a while, and I've been seeing this happen more and more, especially with the large numbers of Americans that have lost their jobs this last year, no thanks to the idiots in the White House, is that people have to start their own businesses. And I think that small manufacturing in your garage, in your home, is what we need to be doing. Stop waiting for the corporations. They're not going to listen. They need to have pressure put on them in a multitude of ways, not just getting a snotty email or a phone call. But Americans need to start manufacturing their own stuff in their garages, in their shops, in their homes, whatever, and avoid the corporations altogether. This is starting to happen, and I am encouraging other people to do this more and to think about this. And, you know, we're going to have to fix the problems in this country ourselves, because our leaders certainly can't do it. So whatever it is, I mean, that's why I'm putting my shop together. I have things that I'm going to manufacture here. Now, I didn't create this YouTube channel to go into that and detail what I'm manufacturing. I created the YouTube channel just for fun and, you know, to do personal stuff. And yeah, I will do videos of, you know, setting the shop up and building the press or whatever. But I'm not going to be doing videos and detailing what I'm doing as a business. I just decided I didn't want to do that, and nothing I'm doing is going to be depending on YouTube. You know, if the YouTube thing takes off, great. If it doesn't, I don't really care. So I think that we're in a time and place where we need to look at what's going on around the world, and especially here. And, you know, I'm sorry, but we are not the world's welfare provider. You know, I can't help if somebody in some other country loses their job because we bring manufacturing back here. You know, those countries in other parts of the world have corrupt governments, and the people need to understand that if things are going to get better in their countries, then they're going to have to stand up to their leaders and push back. That's the only way things are going to get changed, because people are greedy. All they care about is their money and their profit margin and their bottom line, and, you know, controlling the masses, because that's what we got going on with mega corporations. And I've said this before about the Koreans, the North Koreans. You know, why are the Kims in control in North Korea? Why is there a dictatorship in North Korea? The reason is because the North Koreans allow it. They consent to it. That's why. When the North Koreans get tired of a dictatorship there, then they will overthrow the Kims and they will install a different government, or they'll reunite with the South, or something else will happen. It's the same thing in China. And these things are you know, dangerous. You know, people get killed. Well, that's the way it goes. I mean, what did we do here in America during the Revolutionary War? We fought against England. People died. People lost their homes. You know, the English burned homes down and torched crops and destroyed businesses and did all kinds of horrible things. And people sacrificed. They gave up everything. They went and fought. They lost their lives. That's what our founding fathers did. So I think that y'all need to think about that, and let's take our country back and stop worrying about everybody else. We don't owe anybody anything. What we need to do is focus on us. If somebody in another country don't like it, they can emigrate to here legally, or they can overthrow their government there and make a change. That's just the way it is. But I'm sorry, we're not the welfare state for the world. And there's no possible way that our economy can handle that kind of burden anymore. It's just gone too far. I'm a homeowner. I pay taxes. I struggle. I'm like everybody else. I'm a week away from being homeless. So I feel it too, and I want something better. And so I think that you know, you can be like that billionaire that doesn't give a crap about what happens to the Uyghurs, you know, that the guy owns whatever football team. I don't know his name, I don't care. If that's the way you are, fine, that's your problem. But I'm not like that. I have morals, I have values, I have respect for human life, and I have limits of what's acceptable. And China has exceeded those limits in every possible way. And the support of China needs to come to an abrupt end. Not the least of which, if we go to war, then how are we going to run our businesses if we can't get all the Chinese crap that we're depending on? You know, there's another reason why we need to be independent and on our own. So that's my rant for the last time, and I hope that everybody takes that to heart and thinks about it. You know, if you don't like what I said, too bad, you know, that's your problem. Sorry you got your undies in a knot. Go cry to mommy, do whatever you want. It's not my issue. My issue is being a grown-up adult, being a man, putting our big boy panties on, and doing what the frickin' heck is right. That's it. Nothing else. Do what's right. And this is what's right.